Welcome to the Raj and Drew Show for entrepreneurs. My name is Drew. I've got Raj here, and we are going to discuss a fantastic topic today: business practices for maximum growth and impact. I mean, you were talking the entrepreneur's love language with that topic, Raj. Maximum growth and impact. That's what we want. That's our fuel. That's what we want to hear about. And so let's jump in. I know you've got 7 different practices that every entrepreneur should be practicing, they should be engaging in, and this is going to help them grow. This is going to help them impact in their marketplace. So let's jump into it. What is this first practice for maximum impact?
The first practice is a combination of value proposition and strategy.
Okay.
And let me start with the value proposition first. Because you are passionate about starting a business. You're passionate about growing your business. The first thing you need to do is basically, how do you differentiate your products and services from the competitor?
Okay.
And second, how do you go back and create a sustainable business model? Those are the 2 things the value proposition will really help you to drive. And then the value proposition will help you to start thinking about and saying, who is the ideal customer? Because you're building a product to your ideal customer, your target audience. And then the next level will be is, how do you sell? How do you market? What are the uniqueness? That starts from your value proposition piece. That's the reason why I tell people is, whatever you're doing, try to identify.
Yeah. Well, that's right there with, what's an entrepreneur? There's someone that solves a problem in the marketplace, right?
Exactly.
And so if you're going to solve a problem with an electric vehicle, let's say, then you've got to make sure there is a need or desire out there in the marketplace. And then is this going to be a luxury there's lots of different electric vehicles. Is this going to be a luxury electric vehicle, or is this going to be a performance electric vehicle? What is that niche? What is that unique person that you are going to provide value to in your product or service? So you've got to start there, almost like you got to create your avatar, is what I'm hearing you say. Who is that ideal customer?
Yes. And Drew, just to add an example from the coaches and consultants, we see a lot of them, right? I was at one of the expo in Philadelphia last week.
Okay.
And I had a chance to talk to several people. And one of the biggest thing was, they're a good coach. There is no doubt about it. And they said, Raj, I can go back and serve everybody. And what I told these people, and we got into the discussion, is you can sell to everybody, but what are your resources to sell to everybody? If I talk about a Fortune 100 or a Fortune 500, I'm sure they have the talent, they have the certification to do it. But the process may take you 6 months to 12 months to get a client. Are you sustainable? Can you do that? Versus if you go after a small entrepreneur or a small business owner who can make a decision in less than an hour sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I was in California, there was a problem. We met, we spent an hour later, I closed the deal and I got the client because I was working with an entrepreneur. So that was my sweet spot. I know that piece of it.
Yeah. Well, you make that good point. Your sweet spot. You want to do business in your sweet spot. You want to have some sort of understanding, or you're able to bring the people around, or you paid for some information or understanding so that you can be an expert in whatever that area. When we're talking about coaching and training, you do want someone that's passionate about that, has some understanding about that knows what they're talking about, has spent some time with entrepreneurs. Obviously, we know that the coaching practice, the coaching process is a process of asking questions, and you don't have to know somebody's business or their industry to help them, but we're all human. And the quickest way to scale, the quickest way to sell is to be able to relate and show that you have experience in a certain area. That's why I feel most comfortable in the leadership area, because I've been practicing leadership. I've been studying leadership. I've been engaging in leadership activities for close to 20 years. And so when you have that kind of experience, you bring that to the table and people go, okay, I can trust them. And so yeah, absolutely. Okay. So that's strategy, that's value proposition. That's what you're bringing to the table. Was there anything else on that topic that you want to say?
So when you have your well-crafted strategy, what happens is it very clearly identifies your target audience.
Okay.
It defines your unique selling points. It really outlines your goals and objectives. And all of those things will really help you to make timely and well-informed decisions. because business success is all about making the right time, the right decision.
Yeah.
And that is where the strategy will come, which is very well crafted.
So let me jump back, because I could hear somebody saying, I don't want to really narrow down my niche, because then I'm cutting out so many people that could be a client, and that's diminishing. I want to have a big business. I want to do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
I think you'd say the same thing. Look, there is an abundance of opportunity right around you, right in your backyard, right in if you pick an area, if you're in one state or another. We know a guy that we're part of a coaching association with, that's in a town of like 30,000 people, and he has a multi six-figure coaching and training business in that small town. He doesn't do any business outside of the town, and he doesn't do any virtual. He does it all in person. How do you do that? There's plenty of business, no matter where you're at, no matter where you live. And that guy proved it with his business.
Yes. And Drew, that is one of the biggest challenges with people who are starting. And I tell you, basically, when I started my business, basically, I come from a big business, right? I come from the GE world, where I learned strategy and implemented strategy. I went and worked with people and transformed people. I was one of the best process experts in the company. So I had three major things that I have done, proven in a big company. But for the first 3 years, I really struggled to scale my business and grow. For one big thing is my strategy and value proposition was not very well clearly defined. It took me 3 years to come. Yes, too wide. I was casting a big net, fearing that I would lose something, but I was not getting anything.
Yeah.
Because I could not focus on anything. And then I made a decision and said, you know what? I'm going to be specialized in small business.
Yeah.
And once I started focusing on that and stuff like that, fast forward 10 years, I got a great business. My clients love me. I'm adding so much value to them because my strategy and value proposition are done.
Yeah.
And recently, one of the person who is starting their business asked me this question and said, Raj, basically, how do I learn this and not make the same mistakes? This person is in a current role and he wants to resign his job and start a business. And you know what? The first thing I told him was, get a business coach who has been in your role, who stopped his business and started this thing. So those people who have gone through that, they will help you to do that.
Yeah.
And I said, that would be the biggest investment you can make on yourself, instead of wasting 100,000, whatever salary he was making, for the next year or two and be without an income.
Yeah. Well, and I think in addition to that, at the end of the day, it's a discipline issue, right? You can't give into fear. You can't give into the fear of missing out, right? Missing out on a client. And you have to stay disciplined in your approach to doing it. That doesn't mean that if someone seeks you out and says, hey, I believe that you can help me in my business and I want you to help us. I know you don't have any experience in whatever, automobile manufacturing, but I want to bring you in because I want your material on leadership. Great. I'll come in, and we'll do it. But that's different, where someone seeks you out and brings business on your front doorstep, as opposed to you just trying to get whatever business and changing your marketing strategy to reach everybody, and changing even your content around to reach everybody. It's so much more repeatable in the early years to have a set base of what you're doing and be disciplined in that. And I think from my perspective, one of the most challenging sides is that discipline side of it.
No, it's very, very important. And that's the reason why when you have the value proposition, when you have the strategy piece of it, it creates a solid foundation for your business. And it really helps you to go back and think through, and that would turn into your long-term success.
I love it. Awesome. Oh, well, we got to get to number 2.
Yeah. Number 2.
I'm excited about this one.
It is all about leadership. That is your favorite topic, Drew. And you have written a book. You have done so much on the leadership side of it. And that is what it is. The essential part of leadership is motivating people, inspiring innovation, and fostering a positive work environment. Those are the 3 things that come to my mind. But again, you are the author of a book on leadership. So I would like for you to add a few more to that.
Well, I love the simplest definition, I believe, of leadership is knowing where you want to go and getting others to go there with you, which is really step 1 and 2, right? I mean, that's step 1 and 2 in your process and there's a lot there, right? Knowing where you want to go, you got to take some time. You got to figure that out. You got to figure out what your skills are, what you're excited about, what you want to do. Know where you want to go, step 1, and then get others to go with you. Well, how do you get others to go with you? Well, you have to cast a compelling vision. You have to communicate. You have to know how to communicate. You have to create that environment where people want to work, right? They might get behind you for a week and then go, this guy's a total jerk. I'm going to go back to my old job. I'm going to find a different job. I don't want to be around them. And so you have to create that environment where people want to work. You have to inspire them to work long hours, do challenging things. How does that happen? Well, by you doing that, by you working hard, by you challenging yourself, pushing yourself to the limit. We've heard all the stories of the entrepreneurs. We've heard the stories of Elon Musk working these 80-hour weeks, falling asleep on the manufacturing floor, trying to figure things out, whatever the case is, right? These are the things of folklore, entrepreneur folklore and legend, right? We all want to have those stories about us. Well, if that's the case, and that's what you want to do, you have to model those things in your organization that you want to see. So I think it's just that simple. But sometimes in simplicity, there's all those complicated things of how do you develop a culture, and that's where you got to read books, you got to read the articles, you got to try things out every day. I like to say that lawyers practice law, doctors practice medicine, and leaders practice leadership. It is a practice. You get to practice it every day, and you get to try new things, and you get to experiment. And that means sometimes people go, wow, you're brilliant. And other times they go, you are an idiot. What are you doing? You go, I'm sorry. I was trying something and it didn't work. Obviously,
very
my
true.
bad. I messed up. And maybe we should add in there, married people practice marriage too. Cause right. That's the same thing, right? Sometimes you mess up and you make mistakes. And so those are some of my thoughts on leadership.
Drew, I want to go back and take it from an entrepreneurship perspective. See, that leadership, what we're talking is any leader.
Yeah.
But when we talk about small businesses and entrepreneurship, there are a couple of additional challenges from a leadership perspective. Because there's, like you said, the vision part of it is very, very important. Yeah. And then they're providing the guidance to the team so that they're going back and everybody's moving in the same direction. But in addition to that, leadership is they're making some tough decisions. In an entrepreneurship, they're making some calculated risks. And the other part of it is not just building relationship with their work employees, but they're talking with all the stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, your customers, your suppliers, your investors, your bankers, your tax people, whoever you're talking about. All of that is part of that leadership. And some of the things about leadership is, are you communicating effectively? Are you really negotiating very well? And are you building the trust with all of your stakeholders? For an entrepreneur from a leadership perspective, these are some of the things will be very, very critical for them, which is very different for a Fortune 500 leader. Their challenges might be slightly different, but from a small business owner and an entrepreneur, these are some of the things I have started to notice working with so many entrepreneurs.
I love it. And that's what we're talking about with the niche. See, you brought it back to the unique challenges that an entrepreneur is going to face, as opposed to the broad challenges in leadership. And I even deal with small business leadership, but small business, there's a little tweak there. There's a lot of overlap with small business and entrepreneurs, but the entrepreneur's challenge is unique. And that's why you've got an entire program called the Entrepreneur's Edge.
Exactly.
You've got there's this edge that you're creating for those entrepreneurs out there. We're all looking for the edge. We're all looking for how can we edge out the competition? How can we be a little bit better? How can we be a little sharper? And you are catering all of your years of experience to that specific market of the entrepreneur and their edge. So I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, that's the huge piece of it. So we have just in the last 15 minutes figured out and started explaining why the understanding the customer, why the strategy and the value proposition is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so number 3.
Yes. Basically, we have the strategy, we have the value proposition, we have the vision, we have everything else. Great. but that does not pay our bills. Executing on those will pay our bills. So the
Oh, I
execution
wish
of
it
the
could.
strategy.
I wish the great ideas could pay the bills. I think I'd be a billionaire on great ideas,
Yes.
Raj.
I think every single person will be a billionaire. Like one of my favorite author, Ram Charan, in his book
Yes.
Execution Talks, is
I got
everybody
it.
has brains. Everybody has brains. Everybody has things. They can come up with strategy. You can hire somebody, spend a few days, you can come up with it. But only 30% of the effort is coming up with a strategy. Everything we spoke about is 30%. But the biggest 70% of paying the bills or success depends on is rubber meeting the road, is we executing to the strategy.
Yeah.
And there's so many companies that fail in the execution piece of it.
Yeah.
And that is something which people need to go back and understand.
That's good.
Because this enables to turn their ideas into plans, into reality. That is how they accomplish their goals.
Absolutely. And all the entrepreneurs out there, this is the time you get your pen and paper out and you start taking notes. Because 1 and 2, you're like, oh, I got this. I can do that. I got
Exactly.
it. I know where I want to go, and I can get other people to go there. All right.
Yeah.
Now let's create a business. Let's create an organization that is providing value. So you said number 3, execution strategy. Explain that to us. What does that look like? How do we do that?
The first step is creating a very, very detailed plan. You can come up with the goals. You can come with the KPIs, whatever language you want to use. You can come up with it. But the biggest part of it is coming up with a detailed plan for that. Then the second part of it is assigning responsibilities to team members.
Okay.
It is almost involving and measuring and monitoring progress, adjusting plans as and when things are happening, or we know the VUCA word, where things keep on constantly changing in the market, and we need to be in a position to understand the signals, understand the data, and keep changing those things. And the other piece of it is you need to look at cash as an entrepreneur, as well as the resources appropriately. You've got to keep on balancing. No entrepreneur or a small business owner really have so much of cash sitting that they can do whatever they want to do. So there's always a prioritization, is resources, cash. Those are the 2 things. When I say resources, I'm talking about basically manufacturing capabilities, people, and the other part of it is the cash payment, the actual money to go back and pay for those services. All of those has to be there. And while we are doing all of this, we need to measure our risks and see how the risks are, and we need to start mitigating that as well. All of that will be in the execution strategy piece of it.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so we're getting serious now. We got execution strategy, step number 3. What is step number 4?
The step number 4 is all about people and culture.
Yeah.
And the biggest part of it, I will tell people about the culture. A lot of people take culture as easy. But this is where most of the successful companies, they establish their culture very early on.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what really helped them to really grow much faster and scale much faster. Because once you develop the culture, it becomes the fabric that holds the company, the glue for everybody to work towards. Everybody's going towards a common end. Yeah. And when there is a crisis, when is a situation where there are a lot of things happening, the culture brings everybody. So the culture piece of it has to be defined. And some people, basically, they might not define and write it down. And that is perfectly okay, as long as the entrepreneur, the business owner, is consistently displaying that, and people will just follow it. It is almost like the old saying, right? I can't hear what you say. Sorry, no, not that basically. What you do speaks so loudly that I can't hear what you say.
Yeah.
And that becomes it. So culture is something that every day people are following and really living that. So that is the first piece.
That's you know, as I look at these 7 practices, and I have them in front of me on the slide here, you know, they go, number 1 is really, it's this you know, it's a skill set of a person, a practice that's maybe more of that disciplined person. And then leadership you see as more of a soft skill. And then execution strategy goes back into that disciplined hard skill. And then people and culture comes back into the soft skill. And I'm looking at 5, 6, and 7, and it almost goes back and forth from a person with high execution skills, and then a person with maybe high, you know, EQ skills. I know you've given me the statistics before. It's a very small percentage of people that are able to do both. So the entrepreneur, do they early on need to find, Steve Jobs had his I forget his name, the guy with a longer
Wozniak.
name.
Wozniak.
Wozniak, there you go, Steve
Yes.
Wozniak. So he had him, and he was kind of the brains. He built everything out. He made that happen, while Steve Jobs was this innovator, entrepreneur, idea guy. Is that pretty typical for an organization? You need to bring someone around you like that early on to help wherever you're deficient.
So most of the time, if you look at the companies that grew, you take any of the companies, Microsoft, you have Bill Gates, but who comes with him? Right? Paul Allen.
Okay.
So each one of those things, basically HP, Hewlett and Packard. So a lot of these companies always had two people. Sometimes the second person was visible and was part of it, or sometimes they were not say invisible, but they were more in the back end of the operation.
Gotcha.
But the success stories, whatever we hear, whatever the research we have seen, it always enables. So they build trust and they're very different. That is the key. They have a trust. They both believe in the same culture and the same values, but their behaviors are different. Their driving forces are different. And that culture piece of it really works together. And that's how they go back and become successful.
Yeah.
Because that is the foundation of the business success, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole people part of it, because there is no business without people.
Yeah.
And that we all know. And now with the culture, which is becoming the fabric of the company. And once you have this, what happens? The first thing is it creates a very, very nice, positive work environment.
Mm-hmm.
So now when you have a positive work environment, basically people thrive there. They can work to their full potential. If you look at one of the Gallup surveys, there are less than 22% of the people who are working to their full potential.
Yeah.
So basically, if you look at it, only 22%, then basically there's so much of waste happening in the companies.
Yeah, that's that discretionary energy and output that we all have. And I've read countless studies that if people don't feel that their boss is caring or that they belong in that organization, then they don't give that discretionary energy. And you can call it quiet quitting, you can call it whatever you want.
Yes.
They're doing the bare minimum to do their job, collect their paycheck, not get fired. And that's a lot of people out there.
Yes. And that would go back and help them to recruit a lot of talented employees as well.
Yeah.
Because when people are satisfied and they're working towards the full potential, they tend to go back and attract more people to come like that. And then you keep on growing that way. One of the biggest thing, what happens now, it starts fostering into a lot of innovation and growth. Because when people are really working and like you said, the discretionary energy is put, then what happens? Basically, people are saying, what can I do differently? Is there a different problem I can solve? Is there a different thought that comes? And all of that will be built around the people and the culture piece of it.
Yeah. Well, and you want to support your teammates. You want to, if you really have this team atmosphere and you're working together, then you want to get them what they need so they can do their job. And you want to think through a challenge with them so that they can make their life easier. And that's a wonderful environment, a wonderful way to work together. So people and culture is number 4. So strategy and value proposition number 1, leadership number 2, execution strategy number 3, people and culture number 4. Are we ready for number 5?
I just want to add one more point on the people side of it.
Yeah.
So every single entrepreneur, small business owner, they need to think about this behind their back, in their mind all the time.
Okay.
Whenever it comes to employees, recruit, retain, and grow. So the first thing is they need to really recruit the right people. And when you're small, recruit them for the culture, because the company is being built on the vision and the skill set of the entrepreneur and the owner. So this person and his team, initial team, can help them to learn the skills. So you're building and hiring only based on the fit of the culture.
Yeah. Okay.
But as you grow, now you have more processes. You need specialized skills and stuff. That is, we need to go back and recruit. Now we need to retain them, because you're constantly changing, especially a small business changes much faster than a bigger company.
Yeah.
So you need to bring in the people, and they should be comfortable with change, adapt. And that is where the retention challenge comes. If you don't hire the right people and you're not telling them why we are changing, then they might be disgruntled and they might leave.
Mm.
So the retention comes is how are we handling them and helping them to change and adapt during the changes. And the third piece of it is we need to grow, because as the company is growing, responsibilities change, roles change, bigger tasks and bigger positions open up. And now these people have to be trained and groomed to go back and take on the bigger positions. So that is one of the things which any entrepreneur has to go back and think and say, am I recruiting the right people?
Yeah.
Am I retaining them? Because again, retention is very important. One, for the culture, and two, if you have a lot of turnover, you're wasting a lot of money, lost knowledge, lost time and energy and everything else.
Yeah.
And then the growth comes into picture. That is the third piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to add that to the people side of it, which is very, very critical.
I love it. That's great. All right. Step number 5.
Yes. So basically, what do you think 5 is?
I think it has to do with execution. I think it has to do with hard numbers and something not soft skill related, if I were to make a guess, even though I see what it is right in front of me.
Yeah. So basically, it is all about metrics and results.
Yeah.
So here, that is where I would go back and say is you can go back and talk about measuring results here, but the biggest part of it is you need to understand some of them are qualitative, some of them are quantitative. The qualitative are great. We need to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But where the rubber meets the road is the quantitative piece of it. And that is where, because we need the quantitative data to go back and track our process.
Yeah.
We
so
need
you're
to
talking sales, revenue, how much have we generated in revenue? How many units have we sold?
Yes.
How many people does it take to sell that many units? Can we scale up?
Exactly. And if we are lacking behind in that, we need to go back and make decisions, right? Hey, we are not able to go back. We have a lot of backlog. Then we know we need people in the operations side to support and make the product. Or if we have a lot of product in inventory, then we don't have enough people to sell. So a lot of those data analytics and data-driven decisions has to be done. And for that, you really need the metrics piece of it.
Yeah.
And the second piece is you need to start identifying trends and patterns. Because if you have multiple products, then you want to go back and say, you know what, product A is selling very, very well, but we're always out of stock on product A. But product C, we have so much of inventory here. So how do we go back and reduce the inventory levels for product 3 and put some more resources under product A? All of those things are by identifying the trends and patterns. And that becomes very important. And once you have the quantitative data, this becomes very easy. And the other part of it is people and motivation, right? When you go back and give quantitative feedback to the people and say, hey, this is how you're doing, then they really are motivated with it. I always give an example of a basketball. Hopefully you have seen a college basketball or an NBA game. A lot of people go there like 30 minutes, 45 minutes to go there and settle down. And all the players are sitting there and playing, but there is not a single person watching the scoreboard at that time. Because they don't give a damn and it doesn't count. But once the referee blows the whistle, everybody pays attention to the dashboard. Everybody's at their peak performance. Everybody is doing their best to score. Everybody's doing their best to defend. And that is exactly how this brings to them. The metrics and the measurements bring the same piece of it.
So you bring up something good, and I know you'll like this one. We'll take it over to football and one of your favorite coaches of all time, Belichick.
Yes.
One thing that Belichick has always been known for and done very well is his halftime adjustments.
Yes.
And so I think it's good to say that, yes, we're going in an order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But once you get that feedback from your metrics and your results, would it be right to say that maybe you go back to your execution strategy and you tweak and you modify and you say, hey, we still have the same vision, but maybe we need to grow in our leadership ability, or maybe we need to tweak our strategy, or like you said, we need to give this feedback to the team so they can be encouraged and know that what they're doing in this area is good, and that's going to help our culture.
And that is, Drew, you are right on the money there. Basically, that is exactly what the data is. That is what exactly the feedback loop is. Okay. And we were just talking about the new service, Entrepreneur Edge, right? That just came out of because we were looking at so many of my customers said, Raj, we want something close to this.
Yeah.
So that was something I have not come out of the air. It was something because my customer needed it. I've
That's
been working with clients for the last 15 years, and this was a gap that we noticed. And people started asking me and said, okay, what do we need to do? And this came out of the blue.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, that's perfect. So there's a new way to execute on the broader vision of what you're trying to do. And so when you get that feedback, you do that. Okay. Do we have more on number 5? Are we ready for number 6?
I think we are not ready for number 6.
All right. This one's another fun one. We're talking business
Yes.
practices for maximum growth and impact. These are the practices. These are the things, kind of the do's, the things that you want to make regular in your day-to-day life as an entrepreneur. You want this to be a part of your organization, the way that your team thinks. And so number 6 is
change and innovation.
I love it.
And let me talk about change first, then we'll go to the innovation piece of it. If you go back and look at it, when there are 2 people working in a company, the dynamic is very different versus 5, versus 15, versus 25. So people have to be constantly changing and adapting so that they can work like a system and really deliver the vision and the goals, whatever we set up. So the entrepreneur's life and small business owner's life is constantly changing. And what we have seen is they go through 7 distinct phases before they become a 500 employee company.
Okay.
I don't want to talk beyond 500 because my sweet spot is there, and that is what I specialize in.
Hey,
up to that 7 stages.
Stick to your strategy and value proposition, right? That's discipline right there.
Exactly. So that is what it is. So each one of those stages, you have certain different things you do.
Yeah.
A simple example I'll give you is stage 1 with less than 10 employees. 80% of the time, the CEO or the founder should be selling because they are the face of the company. When they go to stage 2, which is like 10 to 20, they may not be selling 80%, they might be selling 60%. But when it comes to 60, 70 employees, when they're stage 4 or 5, they will be doing less than 10 or 20%.
Yeah.
So that is the change. So he needs to bring in different people. He needs to train those employees who are ready for it, and they go back and do that. And he's there to go back and support them. And that is a change piece of it. Somebody might be handling 5 tasks. And once they're growing, they might be only handling 2 tasks. Like an entrepreneur, I say, when you're starting a business, I say we are wearing 9 hats.
Yeah.
But when you go into like 40 to 50 employees, when you're at stage 4 or stage 5, you're not handling more than 3 hats. And that is the change piece of it. So all of your employees, everybody's constantly changing. And that's the reason why change or die, kind of the concept I keep talking about, is if you don't try, eventually you'll die.
Yeah.
And that is a change piece of it. And now when we're having a growing organization, we need to move away from the focus of the next 6 months to next 12 months. But now we need to set up the vision for the 3 years or the 5 years. And here, what we need to do is, hey, we are serving our customers very well. But we need to take some time out of our agenda and go back and say, how can we think about our customers 3 years from today? What are some of the new challenges they might be facing? What are the new opportunities that our customers will be looking for? And how do we go back and adapt and change and come up with new products, new services, new processes, whatever that might be?
Yeah.
And that is the innovation. So innovation always is looking at it from the 3 to 5 years. Some innovation is also incremental, which can give you 3%, 5%, 10% improvement.
Yeah.
But the innovation, when I talk here, is almost game changer, coming up with a totally new product that gives you a complete new revenue line. Or it can be coming up with a new product that will serve an adjacent client of ours.
Yeah.
So whatever the case may be, but again, strategy thinking, and now you go back and say, in 3 years, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Or 2 years, I want to do that.
Perfect. I love it. Okay. Change and innovation, right in the wheelhouse of the entrepreneur. And then what about number 7?
The number 7 is the most important one to support everything else. And that is what we call tools, structures, and processes. It's a broader category of it. We can go back and divide that and make it a 10-step process. But basically, the world has been very successful with 7.
Yeah.
And that's how the 7 has come. So if you look at the tools, These are the tools. So an example can be your CRM software, a customer relationship management software. Yeah. It can be any other software that can really help us to automate processes, manage our finances, analyze data. Any of those things, you want to use the tools. You don't want to have manual systems, which will be very cumbersome and error prone. Mm-hmm. That is the tools we talk about. The structures are really developing our organization structure. Basically, who is reporting to what, which department is doing what, and then adding the job descriptions so that it provides clarity and direction to every employee, to every department, and the organization. That is where the structures come into picture. Yeah. And the processes, the third one is all about workflows. How do you create a standard operating procedure? How do you go back and have a structured approach of completing the tasks, and it becomes repeatable? Because as the company is growing, you don't want everybody doing things the way they want. Yes, stage 1, stage 2, 10 employees, you're okay with that. Mm-hmm. But as you're growing with it, you really want to go back and standardize process because you want efficiencies, you want productivity, you want minimize all the errors that are happening with it. And that is where the processes, workflows, standard operating procedures come into picture. Yeah.
What is the repeatable process that's giving you the desired result, and you can do it over and over and over again? You're not reinventing the wheel every time.
Exactly.
So getting those processes in place. Beautiful. And that comes through time. That takes time. Now you document processes. There's a certain stage of growth. I want to say it's in that 50 to 100 employees. Is that about when you want to start documenting processes, or?
So basically 34 to 54.
34 to 54. That's when you need to be thinking, all right, it's time to document processes. It's time to get these things written out. And, if you go past that point, you do run the risk of just being a little behind and being, wanting to scale to the next level, wanting to grow, but not being able to train people fast enough because you've never documented the processes. It does put a cap on your growth capacity.
Yeah. And true, if people are not careful about that, that is when they see their profit margin shrinking. Because what is happening is everybody is taking their own sweet time to do it. They're not getting the scales of economy, but the number of people and the overhead has come up.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
So that is the reason why that stage 4, which is a professional organization, is so critical, because you need to streamline your processes. You need to start eliminating waste. And you need to redesigning your business models too, because if you have a pricing structure at stage 2, that has to be changed at stage 4, because now you're paying salaries for 50 people versus 20 people.
Yeah. And providing hope, you should be providing a better product.
Exactly. So a lot of those things interchangeable, but I have seen a lot of companies. In fact, I'm working with one client right now where their operating margins, they didn't even realize they're only making 4%.
Oh, wow.
They thought they were making 15 to 18%, but they're making 4% right now. So the last 1 year, we put the emphasis on that, and we did a lot of those things, and we have moved from 4% to 9% now. But again, it takes time. So it's much better. And they have so much cash now, they're investing, and they bought in 5 or 6 new people now because they have the cash. And now this year, we're expecting it to touch 13 to 14%.
Nice. Okay. Well, you kind of touched on it there, but I mean, we talked about these 7 practices for maximum impact, but maybe something that we left out, or a couple items that people might be asking about, is what about sales? What about operations? What about marketing? Where do those fit in to these 7 practices? Because I got to do those to be in business.
Yes. If you go back and look at it, your strategy, setting up your strategy, and strategy execution will determine that.
Okay.
All of that would be the same. So if you look at it, these are the 7 principles on the high level. And when we talk about sales, we talk about operations, we talk about marketing, they will be a level 2 processes.
Got it.
And those will be driven by your execution. So if I want to go back and get new customers, then I need to spend more on marketing. If I want to get basically a totally different geographic area, maybe I want a different product. A lot of those things will start coming into the picture, and those will be the second level.
Gotcha. So figure out the big 30,000 foot things like your strategy, your value proposition, and those items, execution strategy. And once you figure those out, the marketing is going to be easy. You know who you're marketing to, you know how you're going to do it, you know what you're going to say, you know what you're selling exactly, what the product is. So sales becomes that much easier.
Yes.
At that point, it was Gary V. I love this line. I quote him many times. He said, people always ask me about sales. And he said, sales got a lot easier when I stopped selling to people that aren't interested in buying. And
Yes.
that's target, right? That's target audience. If you're trying to sell a truck to a sports car person, they're not interested. They like sports cars. They don't want a truck. And so it's about figuring out who that audience is. And then sales becomes that much easier. Marketing becomes that much easier.
Yes. And that goes back to the first point we were talking about, value proposition.
Yeah.
It comes back to that. Who is your customer? See, whenever your value proposition, in your example right now, right? Basically, if I want to go back and sell trucks, then the person A is very comfortable. If I want to sell sports car, I will go target customer B. But I will not go after both of them because I'm selling cars. I would not go back after both of them. And that is where the value proposition comes. I'm going to prepare the best trucks available and I'm going to serve the truck market. And these are the kind of people, this is the avatar for truck buyers, and I will go after them. I will not worry about anything else.
Yeah.
And that is where the people, especially the entrepreneurs, because most of the entrepreneurs, they think everything is an opportunity. They're so excited about what I call the shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
And that's the reason why the strategy execution and strategy is like, what are you planning to do and what are you not planning to do?
Yeah.
That is what strategy setting for me is.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, that's tremendous value for this. Was there anything else that you want to say before we sign off today, Raj?
So I want people to start thinking about it. If you are an entrepreneur, if you're a small business owner, if you're planning to do that, start thinking about these 7 things.
Yeah.
And what I would say is take some time in your schedule. I don't know, maybe an hour, 2 hours every week, and look at it from these 7 points just by yourself. If you don't have a big team, that is perfectly fine. But at least by yourself, start looking at it and seeing what is happening there. And you can't fix everything at once. So pick which is the most important one for you, because every business is at a different stage. Every business is at a different growth rate.
Yeah.
So pick where is the maximum value you are getting and then start focusing on it. The beauty of this is you can start anywhere. The center, number one, basically, I don't want to change that. Strategy and value proposition has to be there. That is the core of the business.
Yeah.
And then all the other 6 elements, you can go back and be flexible and start wherever you. So think of the challenges your customers are facing. Think of your employees, what they're facing. And that information will help you and give you a starting point.
I love it.
And then build from there.
That's beautiful. It's fantastic. So you got practical steps. Anybody can do this. Start with the strategy and value proposition. Move out from there. Listen to the podcast episode again if you need to take notes and write down all of these items. Business practices for maximum growth and impact. Powerful podcast episode. Raj, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you all for listening to the Raj and Drew Show for Entrepreneurs. We'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Connect with us there. Connect with us. Don't just follow us. Connect with us.
Yes.
Send us a message. Tell us what you're challenged with. We want to create content around the challenges that you're facing and bring solutions. Leverage all of this experience that Raj brings to the table for entrepreneurs. I'll stand here. I'll ask the questions. He'll give the answers. We'll all have a great time and we'll all learn along the way. So thank you for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful week and we'll see you on the next one.
Okay. Thank you, Drew. Thank you all. Have a great week.